Hello. Thank you for joining us for Unite Precise webinar about Beyond Good Intentions, Learning Through Authentic Collaboration and Mentorship. We are thrilled to have all of you with us here today. My name is Jennifer Staple-Clark, and I'm the founder and Chief Executive Officer of Unite Precise. I will briefly introduce you to Unite Precise, review the webinar logistics, and then we will hear from our 6 expert panelists. Unite Precise is a global health nonprofit organization that promotes high-quality care for all. We offer extensive global health and social entrepreneurship education programs. Our Global Health University program offers a free webinar series, including today's webinar. And in addition to our ongoing expert panel webinars, we also offer 20 online certificate programs for students and professionals. And we have many students who receive academic credit for completion of our certificates, as well as professionals who often pursue the certificates for professional development purposes. These certificate topics range from a certificate in global health to a certificate in responsible NGO management to a certificate in cultural competency, as well as many other different certificate options. Additional educational opportunities for students and professionals include participation in Unite Precise annual Global Health and Innovation events, which focus on responsible global engagement, and our 17th annual Global Health and Innovation Conference, which is the world's largest global health and social entrepreneurship conference, will be held on April 4th and 5th of 2020 at both Yale University and also the historic Schubert Theater in New Haven, Connecticut. And this conference includes nearly 250 speakers and more than 2,000 participants for a weekend exchange of ideas across all disciplines of global health, international development, and social entrepreneurship. And additional details about the conference, including presentation opportunities, can be seen at uniteprecise.org/conference, and we hope to see many of our webinar participants from today at that conference as well in person in New Haven. In addition to these educational opportunities, the webinar, certificate programs, and conference, we also have our own healthcare delivery programs that provide eye care to patients living in extreme poverty. And we partner with phenomenal local eye clinics in Ghana, Honduras, and India to provide quality eye care to patients who are otherwise unable to access or afford care. These programs are locally led and managed by the local medical professionals, and our collaboration with them has provided eye care to over 2.7 million people by the local doctors, including more than 106,000 sight-restoring surgeries by the local ophthalmologists that were specifically supported and enabled by Unite Precise. Unite Precise is the world's only organization that is a healthcare delivery organization that also offers immersive global health education opportunities for students and professionals. The participants support and learn from the local doctors in Ghana, Honduras, and India as they provide care to patients living in extreme poverty in villages, slums, and refugee camps. And the participants learn from the local medical professionals about patient barriers to care and about effective strategies to reach patients who are otherwise unable to access or afford care. The local doctors are social entrepreneurs who design incredibly effective and innovative programs to eliminate the patient barriers to care. So now I will describe the basic logistics of this webinar. We are so delighted to have all of you with us here today. We have 6 amazing panelists, and they have a wealth of expertise to share with you during this next hour. Each of our panelists today will give a 2-minute introduction about themselves, their current role, and their key guidance and advice about authentic collaboration and mentorship. And then we'll dedicate the remaining time to your questions and answers. We already received many stellar questions submitted by you, our audience, by Tuesday's submission deadline. And we also invite you to submit additional questions today in the text box on the left of your webinar screen, and we will work to include some of those questions from today in our discussion as well. We also encourage you to tweet about the webinar, including your key lessons learned, by using the hashtag GHUWebinar, and you can see that hashtag in the webinar visuals on your screen. So now we'll proceed with having our panelists introduce themselves in alphabetical order. I'm delighted to introduce you to our first panelist, Dean Saikhan. Dean, please begin by introducing yourself, your background and current role, as well as your key guidance about authentic collaboration and mentorship.
Hi, everybody. This is Dean Saikhan. Since the mid-1970s, I've been an indigenous rights and environmental lawyer, working in many countries. In 1993, I started Dean's Beans Organic Coffee as an experiment to see if business could be a vehicle for progressive social change. Well, 26 years later, I can tell you the answer is yes. besides being fair trade and organic, the primary business model of Dean's Beans is that we fund and design people-centered development programs in each of the communities we buy from. So right now we have programs in 10 countries ranging from amazing children's literacy programs to community-based cervical cancer to reforestation and endangered species management to women's loan funds and much, much more in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. The greatest advice I could give folks from my a lot of experience, and much of it with bloody noses and bruised egos, is not to get locked into either a program design or a self-image when you go into different communities. Because it's really essential to understand what your role is in each different circumstance, because your role may change. You have to know when you are merely a funder, when you're a facilitator of conversations between different groups in communities. You have to know whether you're a strategic resource person or you're a roll up your sleeves on the ground ally. Those all take very, very different skills, and it's very unfortunate that oftentimes people in international development, whether it's public or private vehicles, don't take the time to step back with humility and see what their true role is. I'll stop there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dean. And Rebecca Harden, can you also please introduce yourself, your background and current role, as well as your key guidance regarding authentic collaboration and mentorship?
Sure, Jennifer, and thank you as always for assembling a bunch of wonderful people to talk with each other and the webinar participants. My name is Rebecca. I'm trained in cultural and historical anthropology, and that's actually a very, very interesting field with a lot of openness both towards scientific and more humanistic ways of understanding the world, which I think is connected to my insights, which I'll share in a moment. At the time I'm speaking, I am working as a professor in the School for Environment and Sustainability at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where I collaborate with a very wide range of colleagues from within my own school. I have colleagues who are ecologists, colleagues who are sociologists, colleagues who have a legal background, colleagues who work in very, very different ways. And so one of the first lessons I learned is that my training helps me respect and listen to many different, types of knowledge, many different types of expertise, and attempt to blend and bring together those different knowledge types toward better understandings of complex systems. I would just say briefly, too, that insight holds for collaborations in lower resource settings or across cultural and continental divides in our world, where it may seem as though someone who has very little formal education doesn't know as much as those of us with lots of degrees behind our names, but in fact they do. They're incredibly important knowledge systems, and so that same principle of respecting and braiding together different types of knowledge holds true in those collaborations. We'll talk more about that later. I look forward to it.
Excellent. Thank you, Rebecca. And Charlie McCormick, can you also please introduce yourself and share your key guidance?
Thank you, Jennifer, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm currently serving as senior fellow at Interaction, the U.S. National Association of 200 International NGOs, and as distinguished visiting professor at Fairfield University. For the past 7 years, I have had a new career in academia, spending 4 years as executive in residence at Middlebury College, where I was an undergrad, and a year as an advanced leadership fellow at Harvard, a year as a fellow at Yale, and now at Fairfield. That was after a 45-year career as an executive in global development and health organizations, specifically 18 years as CEO of Save the Children, 15 years as CEO of World Learning and the School for International Training, a year as a Fulbright Fellow in Venezuela, and prior to all of that, getting my master's and my PhD at Columbia University. My main takeaway regarding authentic collaboration and leadership is that Not every good professional relationship is going to become a mentoring relationship. And when it does, it has to be based on mutual respect, affection, and satisfaction, and it has to stand the test of time. A relationship that is not just for once or twice, but for many years. So thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Charlie. And Anatol Mamzi, can you also please introduce yourself, your current role, and your key guidance?
Thank you, Jennifer. So here's Anatol Manzi from Partners in Health. I work as a director of clinical practice and quality improvement. I'm also an assistant professor of global health at University of Global Health Equity. Well, in terms of what I do here, Partners in Health is a global health organization, and we support over 10 countries, and we have approximately 18,000 employees. Personally, I joined Partners in Health in 2005. It was as a junior HIV clinician. And obviously, I got a privilege to be exposed to some of the best mentors, including Paul Farmer and Joy Mukherjee, and most importantly, really fellow clinicians and patients and families. So again, as you may know, clinicians, but also pretty much everyone in low-income countries, the approach used to build competencies and collaboration, it's mainly based on didactic training and skills building, sitting in front of a PowerPoint and eventually going back to respective health facilities. People cannot really translate some of the didactic classroom-based content into practice. So over the past 10 years, I've been working with my team and others to develop a model to really build strong mentorship and collaboration with all the support countries we support, and specifically clinicians and other involved with our work. How do we make this happen, and what authentic mentorship and collaboration involves? So for me, I would be really simple here, saying that obviously, in addition to having really competent in terms of subject matter, I would emphasize on the importance of having that compassion, and in addition to that, having a certain level of humility and active listening. And eventually, the last thing that I would highlight here is having an understanding of contextual factors that affect your mentorship and collaboration. And I call these, some invisible drivers of what you're trying to achieve. So I will stop here, and I will be happy to expand more.
Terrific. Thank you so much. And Marie Martin, please introduce yourself and share your key guidance as well.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. It's always a joy to be on these webinars and with such a distinguished group of people that I look forward to learning from as well. As Jennifer mentioned, my name is Marie Martin, and I direct education and training activities at the Vanderbilt Institute for Global Health, as well as our Master Public Health program. And I'm also on faculty here in health policy at Vanderbilt. So I find that my niche is at the intersection of education, health, and policy, and that's kind of where I live. I've been developing curriculum and academic programs for nearly 20 years in the U.S. and abroad. And my work focuses broadly on building human capacity to improve health outcomes, particularly in low resource settings. And I do that at the student level, also at the institutional level, and with our partners in low and middle income country settings. So in particular, Today, I'll describe some work that we've been doing in Zambia and elsewhere related to building effective mentorship programs in academia, which has been a really exciting and fulfilling initiative. So my focus of my advice will be principally on mentorship, really building off Charlie's great points about the importance of long-term mentorship and looking for good fits between mentor and mentee. I would add by saying, from the perspective of the mentee, seeking a diverse set of mentors, those that look like you, but also those that don't, and looking to leverage different skills, knowledge, and networks in both informal and formal ways. And we'll illuminate that, I think, later in the talk. From the perspective of a mentor, I'll say, as a mentor, my own mentor once told me, be very nice to your mentees because one day you'll work for them. So I think that it's important to always reflect on our roles both as mentees and as mentors.
Great. Thank you, Marie. And Julie Mountcastle, please introduce yourself and your guidance as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this amazing group. As Jennifer said, my name is Julie Mountcastle. I have been involved in collaborative work for my entire career, although I've been in two very different fields. I was a professional actor before I became an educator, and I'm currently the head of school at Slate School in North Haven, Connecticut. We are an independent nonprofit 501c3 K-6 elementary school. We have a curiosity-driven, project-based, nature-focused curriculum. Our students are engaged in collaborative learning with our staff, and collaborative teaching and learning is the heart of our work here as professional educators. Our staff works wisely and collaboratively together. We have an intentionally jigsawed staff with many different talents so that we can be constantly educating and learning from each other. I am fortunate to experience a very collaborative workspace in my life, and I know that that's not true for everyone, but I wish it for everyone. When I think about authentic collaboration, I think it is selfish in its selflessness. It is that open, risk-ready environment that makes the most progress. And I would just say, when we are guided by the idea or the project or the problem, and not so much the personality or the people, then the potential is infinite. And I'm actually humbled by the potential. And so that's what I would say for now. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Julie. And thank you to all of our panelists. As you heard, they all have an incredible wealth of expertise and guidance to share today. We'll now proceed with the question and answer session. And as I mentioned, we received questions in advance from you, our audience members. And if you have additional questions, please post them in the text box on the left of your webinar screen. To start, Julie, we are all teachers and learners. How do you embed this tenet in your work, and how do you cultivate authentic collaboration?
Well, thank you for that question. I think Marie said it pretty well when she said that we'll all be working for our mentees. We are all teachers and learners is so true, and never more evident than in the field of education. I think certainly I've learned a lot from my mentors and people who are teaching me, but I've learned far more from my students. And I think it's important to be transparent about this and what I do, and I would encourage everyone who's in a similar situation to be similarly transparent, because when you do that, then you're open to and able to learn so much more from everyone around you. And in terms of embedding this in my work, I'll just say here at Slate School, for example, there are only child-sized chairs. We sit side by side with our students because we want it to be absolutely clear that as they work, we work. And I'm not just studying them, I'm studying, my own work. I'm following my own passion as I share that with them openly and obviously every day. They are empowered to teach me, and they do. And it is truly empowering for them to see that we are all on a learning journey, and that it doesn't stop at 3 o'clock, And it doesn't stop at 6th grade or 12th grade or a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. This is life. This is what we do. We're learning, and we're learning from each other. And if we're not doing that, then we're not really doing much of anything at all. In terms of cultivating authentic collaboration here, I think the way that we do that is by often saying, I don't know, and saying it to each other as educators and saying it to the children as well. I don't know, it's a really powerful response to something. It gives a signal to everyone that you're open to learning something. And it's that openness that for me is exciting as an educator, but it's also brought me such incredible opportunities to learn from such a vast variety of humans that I wouldn't trade that for the world.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Julie. And Dean, how do you engage local partners effectively in an authentic collaboration? What are your greatest lessons learned regarding effective collaboration?
It's interesting. Like I say, we've got programs, active programs, some of them going on for 20 years in 10 different countries. So we're not, new to this. And the key is, I heard that one of the other comments that there are 16,000 employees, which is great. And I know a lot of large organizations that have, huge in-country staffs. We have no employees in 10 countries because the entire way we do business, the entire way we engage with communities is by offering the resources that we have and what knowledge we have to facilitate the community's ability to solve its own problems and then to manage any programs that are created. Obviously, if there's a technical component like in health and you need people coming from the outside, that's fine. But by and large, I find that too many northern organizations create another level of hierarchy on top of already relatively oppressed or resource poor people all over the world. And at the end of 3 or 4 years, you look back and those programs have failed. Trillions of dollars have been spent in development aid and international development since the 60s, and you don't have a lot to show for it. So I recently got a call from a very large organization, I won't mention the name, and they said, we've been doing this for 40 years, and we come to the realization that we haven't really done anything. So what do we do? Can we have a different dialogue about how development aid and how international development works? So we don't have employees because, as interestingly, as Julie just said, we come to the table with, we have resources, we have experience, but we don't know. We don't know your particular circumstance. So we need to get to know you big time, and you need to get to know us. So in every circumstance, we spend a year getting to know the communities before we actually do anything. And that means a lot of visits, a lot of living together, learning about birthdays, learning about families, learning about local culture and customs, because at the end of the day, it's the people that run the programs, and it's very easy to choose the wrong people as partners or to not understand the people you're working with. And that really interferes with the ability to get things done. So humility, getting to know people at a deep, deep level, including learning languages. I always start off in communities by giving a speech in a local language, even though I screw it up. It just makes me, a more available and humble person. I think humor is critical to creating relationships, especially if you're coming in as an expert and you're already, setting a hierarchical relationship. So humor and good feelings is very important for breaking down barriers. Again, so much to talk about, but let me stop there with the last comment that it's not just people and it's not just systems, it's both. Successful programs, successful collaborations require us to understand the people we're working with, but also understand the bigger sociological systems that they're living in. Because you can have all the best intentions and even a lot of resources, but if systemic oppression or systemic lack of resources is there, and I work largely with indigenous peoples, and that's pretty much the way it is all over the world, you can't even work with the people without somehow figuring out how to work with the system. So it's not one or the other, it's both, and that's taking on a lot, which is one reason why so many programs fail.
Great, Dean, thank you so much. And Charlie, how have mentors affected your work, and what do you think are the most important qualities to look for in a mentor?
Great and important question, Jennifer. I can honestly say I would not have had the life or the career I have had without mentors. They have really guided my values and my capacities and my vision of the impact. So to me, it's been a really crucial phenomenon of life. I might make a distinction between character mentors and work/professional mentors. They overlap greatly, obviously, because professional development is a combination of character and capacity and skills, but they can be different. And as I reflect on the question and the role of mentors, first of all, I think of the character mentors I had when I was young. And these are coaches, Little League coaches, AYSO soccer coaches, scout leaders, people who were giving back, who cared about me and young people, who were people of real character and caring and community commitment. And they knew a lot about soccer, or they knew a lot about baseball, but specifically, it was about persevering. It was about practicing over and over. It was about doing what you don't enjoy doing. It was about teamwork and so on. So those people weren't coaching me or advising me in any career sense, but they had a huge impact on who I am and what kind of professional I've been. Now, I was a combination of 35 years CEO of Save the Children and World Learning and SIT. And during that time, I had 7 board chairs and maybe 10 or 11 board mentors. The chairs were all mentors, and these were people who really reinforced my self-confidence, who added a personal dimension to my work life, who suggested how to run meetings more effectively, and so on and so forth. So that combination of those who have guided my values and those who have guided my career has truly guided me for throughout all the decades. And those who become real mentors, I would say, number one, they have a great sense of people insight. They can understand individual character. They have a real perspective, not tunnel vision, but seeing how the individual's behavior fits into a broader perspective. They have great commitment to character building and skill building, and they have real expertise in areas that a mentee needs to know about. So this is a real kind of endorsement of mentorship as a key variable in a good life.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Charlie. And Marie, what do you suggest to your students regarding finding the most helpful mentors for them? Also, do you offer the same or different advice to those who have concluded their time as a student at a university?
Thanks so much, Jennifer. Well, I'm really glad Charlie went first because I feel like he really primed the pump, if you will, for some important things to consider when looking for a mentor and ways that mentorship has really guided his career. So I'll echo some of that in terms of looking for someone who has skills, knowledge, confidence in areas where you can learn and grow. And that's what I often advise students. And really, I would say that that's appropriate for any stage of your career, much like Charlie mentioned on the soccer field when you're young or later. There may be slightly different skills, but looking to someone to see what you can't see and help you navigate to your destination is really essential. And so looking for those kinds of concrete skills are helpful, but also these kind of more soft skills that really can either doom a mentoring relationship or help it prosper, rapport and trust, and a willingness to be vulnerable, a willingness to commit, an interest in advocating or sponsoring mentees. But I'll say that those things are all important and well described in the literature. But I'll say that increasingly what I'm interested in is some growing literature in the management field and elsewhere about two primary mentoring functions, specifically these functions that encapsulate psychosocial support and then career and development support. And I describe those separately because you can find an individual where you receive both functions are provided, but oftentimes those functions are offered through different mentoring relationships. So psychosocial being role modeling, personal support, counseling, acceptance, whereas kind of career and development and instrumental functions are more about introducing people to networks, increasing visibility, sponsorship, providing challenging assignments, protecting from adversity. So when I think about this context for me, for example, in an academic setting, it's really important that both of those functions are met because they're both essential. And my piece of advice early on was to create a diverse set of mentors, because what I've learned over time is that if you're drawn to people that are like you, who provide, let's say, psychosocial support, and that's really fundamental as you think about navigating work-life balance and your trajectory and opportunities, you may miss out on some more instrumental or career support that can really help you open up doors, broaden your networks, and access resources that you might not otherwise have accessed. So I really recommend that students always look more broadly for mentors and keep those mentors around as long as they can, because they'll likely provide access to opportunities and support throughout their life.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Marie. And Julie, when you reflect on your style of collaborating, what do you see as the most important aspects of your journey that brought you to where you are now as a collaborator?
It's a good question. I came to education as a second career, and my first career was as an actor and director ultimately, but I always thought that was the most collaborative art form, the musical theater, because you had, musical professionals, you had, composers and dancers and singers and lighting and all of these different pursuits coming towards this one goal of illuminating this idea of that is the play. I was thrilled by that. I'm still thrilled by that. I love to go to the theater and see that happen on the stage, because it is such a dynamic moment, and that it's live and it's happening right in front of your eyes. But as I continued in my life, it became a very difficult profession as a parent, and so I was focused on collaborating with my child. And I realized that teaching was something that I had been doing in my career as an actor, and I found that to be an interesting task. And so as I explored it, I completely fell in love with it, and the collaboration between teachers and educators was really exciting. But I was longing for more of this collaboration with my students, and so that is where I am today, in a setting where I am truly collaborating all day long with the children that I work with. And I think that my journey through the theater and how it has brought me to really respect and admire this kind of collaboration that is, I think, fundamental for all real learning. It has been critical, because now I see it in place every day here at our school, and I am able to step back and transparently enjoy the fact that everyone here has a part to play and has something to teach each other. And it's a magnificent model for children. It's a magnificent model here at our school, where we're intentionally jigsawed so that all of the teachers can teach each other. And it allows us to focus, just like in a play, on that idea instead of the personality. It's focusing on creating this beautiful piece from all of these different lenses. And it allows for an incredible respect for the people that you work with, and empathy for different points of view that I think is vital in the world.
Great. Thank you so much, Julie. And Rebecca, some faculty focus on collaborating and nurturing their students, while others may not be as student-oriented. How have you worked to ensure that your students feel supported and mentored?
Well, I love getting this question from you of all people, Jennifer, for as most of the participants with me speaking today, and perhaps some of you also listening and engaging us with questions may know Jennifer was once my student and is now my collaborator on several fronts that I think have been deeply enriched by the ways we have learned from one another and supported one another over the years. So I would say, just for starters, that much of what I learned about authentic collaboration and mentorship I learned with and from Jennifer, who as a student put together talk series that enabled me to benefit from the way the undergrad student union at Yale University was bringing in top experts in my field. I was able to collaborate with Jennifer on a publication from that series, and we were able to amplify the impulse of that student organization into a contribution to scholarship on the question of applied anthropology. So that's a concrete example of humility, which one of us has mentioned already. I think since those early years of mine, when Jennifer and I first met, I've learned more and more about how one of the best ways to support and nurture students and to embody collaborative energy and mentorship is to do it, is to collaborate, and to learn to feel when you are and are not doing it. So, for example, if any of you ever came across my CV, you would find that I have never advised a doctoral student without a co-advisor. I think if you work in a complex space of environmental sciences and social sciences and how they intersect, it's only honest to admit and to respect the fact that it's unlikely that you have all the knowledge someone needs for their dissertation project, be it a master's, undergrad, or doctoral dissertation. So I've had to push back pretty hard on my university's administration and on some of the admissions from my own mentors about that, who say, you should really just do single authored publications or single advising. And I'm like, well, yes, I should for perhaps certain kinds of status in my field, but the needs of my field and the needs of the world actually say otherwise to me. They say that I will learn more by collaborating. And I've been able increasingly in my career to do that with pride and with approval from those around me, which I find to be a very salutary development. I'm actually of a mind to say that if one is spending too much time in one's own corner on planning or designing anything, a project of an academic nature or of an engaged nature with an organization, you want to develop those reflexes that send off red flags and say, who should I be talking with and working with to make this happen? There is an important interplay between the ideas we have on our own and the instincts we develop as individuals and the ways that we can share those. And I think, just as Julie shared her theater background, I would say my years in Central Africa taught me so much about how to converse with those around me, about consensus building on a given platform, campaign, theory, framework, funding proposal. And I think I'm getting better and better at that as I grow in my career. And I would just say about that we all need to recognize that these challenges play out over our entire lifetime. And we need to give ourselves the time to learn incrementally how to be better and better collaborators and mentors. So for students, co-advising, creating a landscape or an environment for them where they notice that I am happy for them to use other faculty as well and other resources on our campus, and that I can, in fact, instead of advising only, I can facilitate their access to resources that provide information, support, and nurture to them, and that my role as a facilitator of an almost a team approach can be extremely, extremely effective. And that is humility, and that is the learning that I find most valuable at this point in my career.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rebecca. And Marie, how do you advise your faculty advisors about how best to advise students? Is there available documentation for universities to access?
Thanks so much. And once again, glad to be following Rebecca and some really important comments about access to resources and learning over time. I'll say that, when we think about resources and other things from a faculty advisor standpoint, I think it raises an important issue. And this is not just for faculty. I think this is writ large, what we find in lots of different settings is that there often aren't resources to be an effective mentor. There are barriers in terms of time, in terms of experience and confidence, feeling like you actually can provide mentorship to an individual, feeling like you might not be the best at it or be equipped with the skills you need, institutional or financial rewards. And, I think in particular in a faculty setting, oftentimes it's not part of their professional identity. So you may ask someone what they do, and they're a professor of X, a professor of Y. Maybe they have an administrative position, but how often do you hear, and I'm a mentor? So thinking about how we can cultivate that in more informal ways, I think is important as we just continue to converse about mentorship. I'll say that in terms of available documentation or resources, there are lots of different programs that had been developed nationally and internationally. So there are formal programs, but also informal programs. And we just co-developed a mentorship program in Zambia, funded by the NIH, a real beautiful co-curricular development model, which was focused on the particular needs at the University of Zambia, and then built out a robust faculty development program. And what was ironic was here at Vanderbilt, we were really providing support, technical expertise, but yet we didn't have a formal mentoring program of our own. So in a nice reverse innovation kind of approach, we're thinking more broadly about how formal systems could be incorporated even in Nashville across our public health institutions. So it's nice to imagine how mentorship models can flex and adapt based on their context, but with the recognition that mentorship really helps to promote the next generation's development of skills and expertise. So I would say that, there's information that's available, but also recognizing and identifying what particular goals and advice and support individuals need to do the same for their students is really essential. And the literature certainly focuses on some best practices that are that can be enhanced, as Rebecca said. So learning over time how to be a better mentor, including things that are known to improve the mentoring relationship, like effective communication, aligning of expectation, fostering of independence, addressing issues of diversity, and promoting development more broadly. So access to resources, as others have talked about, but also to networks and to opportunities and to ideas of conferences and where to present and how to be visible, and how to think about opportunities as building blocks in a career.
And for our next question, Rebecca, can you please share a lesson that you have learned about collaboration from your collaborators in a resource poor setting?
I've learned many things. And one of them is that if you don't get collaboration right the first time around, it's worth trying again and being honest about what you think might have gone wrong the first time. It's okay to do that, and it's important to do that. And if you ask people what didn't go right, they will often share with you and tell you that. My own work in field science in equatorial Africa, I have worked extensively in countries that include the Central African Republic and Cameroon, Congo. Gabon is where I'm now doing most of my work, but also South Africa and Kenya. One of the things I've learned from those societies is that we have a lot of unlearning to do about collaboration and mentorship, coming as we do if we come from Western and or conventional dominant American approaches to these things, because we are taught so young to self-promote and to be leaders as individuals, and to be people who are able to accumulate resources and display status through that. Whereas my collaborators in Central Africa came from societies in which they were taught from very young ages, in very many different ways, formal and informal, not to accumulate too much power or too many resources as an individual, but that's dangerous, that it's dangerous for the group and it's dangerous for individuals. And so there's a kind of, in many of those places, an ethos of shared resources and shared credit for things, which it can be an impediment to things like micro-enterprise, for example, but it can also be a strength, a force of resilient community making, and certainly distribution of resources in times of scarcity or stress. And so I think that one of the things I've learned is that I have to first, and along the way, grapple with my own cultural assumptions and my own reflexes, and take some of them apart, dismantle them a bit to become a better collaborator. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. And Dee, what are examples of collaboration pitfalls that you have directly observed which originated due to a lack of humility? And what should have been done differently to help ensure a positive outcome?
First off, let me just going into communities in different parts of the world where you grow up differently and you're taught that you're not supposed to be the one that stands out. You're not supposed to be the one that accumulates power. What's interesting is then we go into these communities and we look to identify the leader. So oftentimes we identify the absolute wrong person to run a program, because it's not the person that's humble and serving the community, but it's the person that's trying to aggregate power and information and resources for themselves. Seen it many, many times. That's a cross-cultural problem we've got to, face up to.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our panelists for all of the incredible insights that they've shared with our audience today. This concludes today's webinar. Thank you.